Hi everybody. Today I'm really excited to bring you this video of not one, not two, but 7 mixed media make tutorials where I use one masterboard on all 7 projects. So here is the masterboard, and I will put a link in the iCard, top right hand corner, to that video. So if you want to see me create this masterboard and get the tutorial, you get to go watch another video. These are not my typical colors, but I do love the blue, the red with the parchment color. So you use a masterboard as a background for other projects. So here I'm just putting the 11 by 17 sheet, the masterboard, down, and I'm playing with some of the substrates that I could use, and I'm thinking, what do I want to create with this masterboard? So I have my 7 by 10 Canson Mixed Media art journal page, a 6 by 6 card, a fridge magnet, 4 by 4 fridge magnet, composition book, ATCs. So I know I'm going to do the art journal page, and that's the biggest part. So I just measured it out, and I'm using a straight edge to rip what will become pretty much the Insta background for the art journal page. So start with what your biggest piece is. Then I spent some time and I cut out. So I have a fridge magnet, a 6 by 6 card, a size 8 tag measuring 6 and something and 3 and something, 2 ATCs, and my art journal page. And I have these little bits left, which I'm going to turn into the 7th piece, another fridge magnet. Now with all of these, I'm taking gel medium, putting a good coat on the substrate, and pressing the masterboard that's been cut a little bit larger, and using a brayer to make sure you got a good seal. Typically I do this the night before so it dries really well, and then I check the edges. Then you can cut off the excess, and once everything's ready to dry, ready to go, or everything's dry, you're ready to go. So we're going to start with the art journal page. Now, this is one of the faces that I've drawn recently. I've been watching Karen Campbell's videos and other videos on drawing faces and coloring them. And I'm really proud of what I achieved here. And I Xeroxed it, I copied it, and I shrunk it down and to the size that fits the substrate that I'm using. And I'm just cutting it off. Now, on this drawing, I've done all the shading, and that came in really handy when I was colorizing the face. This is just on copy paper, nothing fancy. Now, I want to do some collage work for the hair. So I'm going to cut the hair that I drew on this girl off. So it's just the face. Now, the great part of this is if you draw a face that you like, finally, you can use it again and again and do different hair and different things to it on an art journal page. So you can cut it like this and then do whatever you want to do with it. Now I have this daisy. This was a free printable. I've sized it, and I'm just cutting out these 2 daisies because I'm going to use them to make the hair for my girl. And I'm choosing daisies because the background has a lot of color in it, a lot of pattern, a lot of interest, and I wanted something a little plain. But I'm not going to bore you with cutting them all out. I spent time in front of the TV fussy cutting all of these daisies out. Now that I have a load of daisies to cut that are cut out. I'm just going to play with what kind of hairstyle I can make for this girl. There is no right or wrong, just a matter of what do you like. So I try it with the landscape orientation. I take pictures, and then off camera I tried it with the portrait landscape or portrait orientation, and I like that better. So that's what I'm going with. So now that I've made a decision, I'm gluing this down with matte medium and giving it a good coat of matte medium because I'm going to colorize it and that'll help me. Now, while you can use what's in the Masterboard as an Insta background and use it as it is, and for most of the other projects, I do exactly that. Here I'm just adding a little bit of color. You'll see me adding more later just to make everything work. Now I'm using my Inktense blocks to colorize the face. I've been watching, I believe it's So Crazy, um, watching her colorize her faces. And, you know, every time I do this, I've done a little bit of work watching the videos, and then in the end, you just have to do it yourself. So I'm using a combination of different colors and getting darker, shading my girl, following the shading that I had. Some of it, isn't going down perfectly smooth and it's getting blotchy, but you know what? Keep working. I did find I had a lot more success using the Inktense blocks than I did when I used the acrylic paints. And I think that has something to do with the acrylic paints that I was using were very opaque and they blocked off what was behind. I use Inktense blocks because they are permanent when they're dry and they're not going to reactivate. That's my battle with water activated products. And I just kept going. I'm using Payne's Gray to colorize the eyes. That matches the blue that's in the background. I love using Inktense blocks because they are permanent and their colors are very vibrant, and there's so many ways you can use them in mixed media and art journaling. In fact, I made a series of extensive Inktense videos showing all the ways that you can use it in your mixed media. They are an expensive product, or fairly expensive, but not when you consider how many ways you can use them. I'm using white to brighten the eyes here and the middle of the pupil, a little bit of highlighting on the lips. And drying it. Overall, I'm very, very happy with how this girl worked. Now, the daisies, I thought before I glue them down, I'm going to paint the centers, and I'm using yellow oxide, which is a little bit brighter than the music paper that I have in the background. And then I'm putting some red on there to tie in with the red that's already in the background. The yellow was a little too stark, a little too different. They weren't talking together. But with that little bit of stippling of red in there, it just worked better. Taking my fluid matte medium, and I am gluing this all down, making my hairdo for my girl. I can't tell you how much time I spent playing with this and trying one way and trying another way. In the end, you just have to commit and just go for it. And no, you've got a face, you can photocopy it again and try something else. These daisies as well are just printed on copy paper. Now I wanted a little bit of that yellow oxide in the background, so I'm rubbing it on the background, and then I get some gesso, white gesso, and I'm just altering the background a little bit. Like I said, you can use the Masterboard just as it is without changing or adding anything to it, or you can tweak it depending on what you put on there. I wanted the yellow oxide to be a little brighter, so I put some gesso underneath, let it dry, and put the yellow oxide on the top to bring out that color. Now I'm mixing in some red to match the colors of the center of the daisies. Now in that process, some of the honeycomb print disappeared, so I'm reapplying it because I wanted that detail in the background. So I'm putting the black acrylic paint on this honeycomb stamp that I used in the creation of the Masterboard and just stamping some of those areas where I've added paint. A good idea when you make a Masterboard is to put on the back the stencils and stamps that you've used and the colors, and then when you want to redo it, you know exactly what you've used because sometimes you're not doing it right away. Now I wanted to paint the daisies, make them a little bit brighter, white, and I'm using just white gesso with a filbert brush, I believe it's called, and you can see the texture that's there, that's created with that. Remember, this is part of my focal image. I want that to stand out the most. And I go over it till I get the level of opacity that I want. Now using the angle brush, I am shading around the girl and around the flowers, my focal image. I want it to stand up from the background. I'm adding a little bit more shading on the face and on the center of the daisies. So this video is going to be a little bit longer because I am doing 7 different projects. I don't show all the steps in their entirety because there's a lot of repetition. But with both pages, I edge, I shade. They follow the same steps. Now I'm using a micron pen and just adding the eyelashes and a few lines on the face, not many, because I'm quite happy with what is, and I didn't want to mess it up. I grabbed my General's charcoal pencil and I am outlining the petals of the daisy. And you can see the part that I've done it on and the part that I haven't. I really like the sketchy outline that I've added. It looks incomplete to me the other way, but if you like it the other way, go for it. And I'm using the medium General's charcoal pencil, not the soft. This one doesn't smudge as much. And just adding a little bit of sketchiness around the page. Now all I need to do is add a sentiment pack. This one comes from my Through the Garden Gate sentiment pack. And all my sentiment packs are available at NinnysNapkins. And I'll put a link in the description box to NinnysNapkins. She carries stencils and stamps, napkins, Posca pens, and many of the supplies that I use in the video. So please go check out the store. And there is the finished page after I've splattered some gold on it. So remember those little bits? I decided that I'm going to take those bits and just kind of glue them together, a bit like a patchwork quilt, on a 4x4 magnetic canvas. So this will turn into a fridge magnet. My goal here was to simply utilize every little last bit and get some color down on this substrate. I'm using gel medium because the Masterboard is thick. There's so many layers of paper and collage papers that I've used. I turn it upside down and use an X-Acto knife to cut off the excess. And then I'm using a makeup sponge and edging it with black. This is just framing the magnet, getting rid of that white. Now I have this size 8 tag, which I believe is 6 1/4 by 3 1/4, something like that. That frames it. Now on the magnet, I'm using one of my dolls and the Sassy Sayings sentiment pack. Hold on, let me overthink this. That's Sobe, the Julie Nutting dolls. And I have these in my stash. When I do them, I stamp them and I cut them out. I have the dresses. So then it's just a matter of finding a color that matches. And I pick the dress that matches that little bit of red in the background. This one, I'm using Tim Holtz's Crazy Birds stamp. Again, I have these masses of them in my stash, and I'm using my Pet Talk sentiment pack. And I had one of those daisies left over from the art journal page, and so I thought, you know what, I'm going to use it. I'm going to put it on the top of my Crazy Bird, and found the right saying in my Pet Talk sentiment pack. Both the Sassy Sayings and the Pet Talk sentiment pack are great, kind of tongue-in-cheek, funny sayings that are perfect for smaller makes, ATCs, 4x4s, iCads, tags. Now I'm adding a little bit of that yellow oxide to the tag because I want to colorize the Crazy Bird that color, and I need it to have a reason for the colors to go together. I forgot to cut out the middle between the legs, so I'm just painting it blue, adding a little bit of blue in the background, much like you saw me doing with the art journal page. So you can just tweak. If you want a little bit of red or a little bit of something that's in that background in a place that it didn't get any, you have the ability to fix it, add it. And then I'm treating this daisy exactly as I did in the art journal page, using white gesso and my filbert brush, I believe it's called. Using my Posca pen here to add a bit of line work and to outline my sentiments and to trace around the tags and the magnet. Something about the smaller makes, I always think they look better when when I draw the line around them. And there is the tag. I'm not weird. I'm a limited edition. And the fridge magnet. Hold on. Let me overthink this. Do you overthink your art page? Now we're ready to do the 2 ATCs. Now ATC stands for Artist Trading Card. and they typically measure 3.5 by 2.5 inches. I'm edging them here, and I'm doing it at the beginning, primarily because I have a makeup sponge that has black paint on it. And I'm using the Tim Holtz's botanical die cuts. There's butterflies and there's florals. Now that one looked all right. I could use part of the butterfly, but I was reluctant to waste a whole butterfly on this tiny ATC. So I chose this flower because that ATC doesn't have any of the red. And I thought to make it fit the set, I'm just going to add it in the focal image. Now I don't like the white part that's on a lot of the die cuts, so I'm cutting it out with a combination of using an X-Acto blade on a cutting mat and my scissors. And don't worry if you cut it apart, you can always glue them back together when you're gluing. Now for the other one, I found this embossed heart. Now this was a dollar store find. You can make one by using modeling paste on copy paper and put some modeling paste through a stencil to get the pattern and then paint it silver. This I just bought from the dollar store, but it didn't stand out on the background. So I'm cutting a blue frame around the heart out of just some paper that I've painted blue. That just makes the heart, gives it a little more weight, makes it stand out from the background. Comes from my short and sweet sentiment pack, and you get black words, black letters on white background and white letters on a black background. But I've also printed them off on tea stained paper, and that's what you see there. And I chose to use those because that color is in the background, the music paper. These ones that I'm cutting out now, I've printed out on Avery adhesive paper. So it's just peel and stick. And you can print any of my sentiment packs on any of these products. Just adding a little bit more of this honeycomb stamp. But both of these backgrounds, I just used the Masterboard pretty much as it was. And I'm choosing to use gel medium instead of fluid medium because the embellishments that I'm adding are thicker and heavier in weight. And typically you're better off with the gel medium for those things. And it's always matte finish. Thinking maybe add a butterfly, maybe add a flower, decide not. I wanted to punch up the color of this rose, so you get some red paint and to give it a wash of color and then do some shading with my black acrylic paint and my angle brush. So again, we've edged the page, we've shaded, we've added the sentiment. And I'm splattering it with some of the pink, or red, I mean, and outlining with my Posca pen. And then I want to splatter it with gold, which is on all 7 pieces. Next up, we are doing the 6x6 card. Now, this is the card base is a TCW folded card base. And I decided with that butterfly from that Tim Holtz Botanical die cut set, I decided that it wasn't showing up. So I stamped or I punched a circle from red scrapbook paper that I had in my stash. And that's just making the butterfly stand up a little bit more than it would otherwise. Then I used a sentiment that I printed out onto tea stained paper from my short and sweet sentiment pack. Shading around the page. I was really tempted to just leave the Masterboard on there by itself. I really love the look of that as a card, just abstract art. Using your Masterboards as backgrounds on your cards is a great way of using your Masterboards. I think we are on project number 7. And this cutie is from a digital stamp from Elena Zinsky Art. I've sized it to fit my 4x4 magnetic canvas. And now I am colorizing it. Much the same way, I believe I use a combination of acrylics here as well as my Inktense blocks like you saw me doing with my girl. I struggled a bit getting the right colors or getting it to look the way I wanted it, but you just keep plugging along. This digital set are fairies to color, and I believe there are 6 different fairies. They're all so cute. They would make a wonderful set. Take the fairies and my short and sweet sentiment pack or the sassy sayings and mix and match. They make some lovely, lovely gifts, teacher gifts, friend gifts. Then I'm just painting. And again, the colors that I'm using for any of the focal images, when I'm colorizing them, I'm selecting because they are in the background. I'm not introducing other colors so much. I'm just sticking to the same color palette that has been determined by the Masterboard. I could have painted these stars the red color as well. Then I'm just shading her face. And shading around the girl just to make her pop from the background. My blue paint smudge there, so off camera I'll be fixing that up. And there's the other magnet. So from one 11 by 17 copy paper like this, I created the masterboard, and then I used the masterboard to create 7 projects. A 6 by 6 card, a size 8 tag, 2 4 by 4 fridge magnets, 2 ATCs, and 1 7 by 10 art journal page. I love when they're all together like this. There's a set. They're all in the same color family. They all work together. It's amazing what a different effect you can get using different focal images. So I hope you give making a masterboard and making multiple makes from that masterboard a try. Close-ups of all the makes are following. Give me a thumbs up. Leave me a comment. Ask me a question. And until next time, go get creative.